Hey guys, welcome back. This is History of Power Rangers Season 3, Episode 11 of my show, but this is about Episode 10 of Season 3. Now, Episode 10, now this is gonna sound kind of funny, but before I actually start talking about it, since we're on, since there's 33 episodes, I'm gonna wait till I get to the 13th episode to mention this, but anyway, now before I get into it, this episode actually has a bit of a weird reason for being called Wizard for a day. But before I start talking about this one, I just want to mention, after this one we have one more video before the first actual two-part episode, which is going to be called Stop the Hate Master. I just wanted to mention that before I started this video, but anyway, getting back into it, this is History of Power Rangers Season 3, Episode 11 of my show, but this is about Episode 10 of Season 3. Now, Episode 10 in the original Power Rangers 3rd season, in the main segment of the original Power Rangers 3rd season, is known as, Wizard for a Day. Now, basically, the way this episode starts off is, some of the Rangers are in the youth center, and then Rocky shows up with these books and stuff, and then basically, he says that he wonders what he's doing with those books, and then basically Rocky explains to the Rangers, to Adam and Tommy, who are the Rangers that are working out, as well as, to Kimberly, Aisha, and Billy that he got assigned to the he signed up for the Teacher for a Day program, which is basically, as it sounds, is where the student and the teacher in a high school, they switch places for a day, basically. Now, I'm just mentioning that because that's gonna play a bit of a funny hand in some of the scenes in this episode. Then basically, they're wondering who he switched places with, and then this man shows up, and the man in question in this episode is named Mr. Wilton, who is basically the science teacher at Angel Grove, the chemistry science teacher at Angel Grove and stuff. And then basically he's saying that one of the Rangers mentions that his classes are a little brutal and stuff, and then basically after that Mr. Wilton shows up and then said that for the time being he's gonna be with them, so because of the Teacher for a Day program, they switch places. So he's gonna have to treat him just the way that as he would normally treat Rocky and stuff. And then basically, what happens is, when Rito overhears that part of it, like the whole Teacher for a Day program thing, he's saying that he wants to give that a try, so he tries to be... Now, this is the reason why it's called Wizard for a Day, is because of the fact that... Oh my god, I'm sorry, but this is just so funny. This is the one and only time in this season, as far as I know, to my knowledge, this is the one and only time in the original series, 3rd season, where one of the minions takes charge of, tries to be the big bad for a bit, because basically when Zedd overhears that part of it, and then Rito says that he's interested and wants to give it a try, and then basically he's like, you think you can handle being an evil sorcerer? And then he said that basically, why not give it a try? And then he decides to allow Rito the chance to give it a try. And then basically what happens is Rito takes Zedd's staff, and then And then he says that the Power Rangers are gonna be in for it with him, and then basically what happens is after that, the Rangers then basically, well, what happens is, Rocky is starting to go to Mr. Wilton's chemistry class that he's teaching, but when he's walking from the youth center, to the school, and then basically, Vulcan. Now this is the part of it that's gonna lead into why I mentioned with a little bit of a funny kind of ending, thing, cause Vulcan Skull see, Rocky walking with teachers' textbooks, and then Bulk asks Skull if he wonders why he has those, and then basically, Skull, said something about, him studying, and then Bulk says that he thinks that Rocky is cheating, which is not true, because Mr. Wilton in this episode lent him those books as a part of the Teacher for a Day program, but they don't know that, so it's sort of a bit of a misunderstanding on their part. So basically what happens is they decide to follow him, and then they show up at his locker, and then basically, what happens is, they manage to open the locker and get the books, and by this point, because they're doing it stealthily, and then by this point Rocky shows back up, and then basically, but when he goes to look in his locker, he doesn't see the books that Mr. Wilton lent him, but that's because Bulk and Skull swiped them because he thought that he was using them to cheat, which is not true, because of the Teacher for a Day program thing. And so he basically has to go to the chemistry class without them, and then basically it causes a bit of a ruckus, and then basically, what happens is, after that, well, because he's in the chemistry lab, working, without the textbooks to help him, and then that causes an explosion at the lab, and then basically, Mr. Wilton is, pretending to be Rocky and stuff, and sort of also being a little bit of a, I guess you could kind of consider it to be sort of a know-it-all and everything, and trying to act like an adult when he's should be a kid because of the experiment, and then basically he gets sent to the principal's office, and then basically what happens is then, now getting back into the segment with Rito and stuff, he's wanting to create a monster, but he doesn't know how to do it, so he calls Finster over, and then basically what happens is he tells Finster that he wants him to create a monster for him, but then Finster says that he won't because he only obeys Rito and Zedd's commands, not him. So basically what happens is, because of that, Rito decides to create the monster on his own, using the clay that's there, and then basically, what happens is, when he sees one of the Rangers down there, and then basically he says that the monster isn't ready, so he decides to send the Tengas he tells them to send down the Tengas to distract him while he creates the monster. And then that leads into the segment with Mr. Wilton and Rocky, where they're in the park and they're explaining how their day's going, and Mr. Wilton explains that he never knew how hard it was being a teenager, and then he's asking Rocky how his day has been. Well, aside from losing the textbooks that he lent him for the Teacher for a Day program thing, and the whole and blowing up the lab because of that, like a minor explosion in the lab, and not much. And then basically, that's when he decides to leave, and then he asks Mr. Wilton that they're going to be at the youth center. Does he want to come with him there? And then he says he'll be along in a few minutes. And then that's when the Tangas show up and attack Mr. Wilton because he's wearing a red shirt. And then when Rocky sees that the Tangas are attacking him, he thinks that they must think that Mr. Wilton is him, so he goes back to help him deal with the Tangas. And then basically what happens is after that, the Tangas have Mr. Wilton captured, and then that's when Rocky morphs to his Ranger form to deal with the Tangas, and then basically Rito tries to use Zedd's staff to zap Rocky, but it doesn't work because he's pointing. Now the reason it doesn't work is because he points it the wrong way. Oh my god, because he uses it from the bottom part instead of using it from the top part of the staff. So when he's pointing it at Rocky from the end that doesn't shoot the magic, but the part that does shoot the magic does hit Mr. Wilton, which turns him into the monster for this episode, which is known as Marvo the Meanie. And then basically what happens is when Rito sees the monster he sort of created on accident, but he's impressed by it because basically the monster tells Rito, like, he shows him what he can do, and then basically what happens is, well, since the monster is created from the science teacher, the chemistry teacher, what basically happens is a lot of his weapons have to do with chemistry, like science stuff, and then basically, Rocky, because by this point, after the monster was turned, Rocky had morphed to his Ranger form, and then he explained, he said that he doesn't want to hurt the monster because it's also Mr. Wilton and stuff, and then he contacts Zordon on his communicator and tells Zordon the situation about what's happened with, he tells Zordon that he's being attacked by Rito and a monster that Rito created, and then basically because of that, Zordon then sends the other Rangers to help him fight the monster. But when the rest of the Rangers show up to help Rocky, he tells them that they can't destroy the monster because the monster is also Mr. Wilton at the same time. So essentially, because of the fact that the monster has a human form, they can't destroy it. So, because if they destroy the monster, because at this point they feel they can't destroy it, because if they destroy the monster, it's likely that they might destroy Mr. Wilton as well. But so they try to fight him without hurting him, and then basically the monster then turns them into these chemistry threats, and then basically Rocky manages to grab them and get away. Well, after the rest of the Rangers are turned into them, because basically Marvo the Meanie basically explains to Rito that there's still one Ranger left to liquefy, but Rocky manages to escape, and then they're wondering if they can find a way to defeat the monster. And then basically Zordon explains that in order to free Mr. Wilton, Marvo the Meanie has to be destroyed. Once that happens, Mr. Wilton will be set free from his control, and then basically Rocky then decides to go deal with Mr. Wilton himself, and then basically what happens is while he's fighting Mr. Wilton as Marvo the Meanie on his own, basically Alpha manages to free the other Rangers from their chemistry thing, because basically 5 of the 6 Rangers, aside from Rocky at this point, had been turned into chemistry vials with chemical colors that are correspondent of their Ranger colors, like, you know, red, pink, black, yellow, blue, and white. All of them except for Rocky, because he had gotten away. So he goes back to deal with Marvo the Meanie to free Mr. Wilton from Marvo's control, and then basically Mr. Wilton's subconscious thing is saying that he wants them to help him and stuff. And then basically Rito then makes the monster grow, and then basically after the other Rangers are set free from the chemical thing, basically what happens is they assist Rocky in dealing with Marvo the Meanie, and then in the Megazord, and then basically while they're dealing with that, Rocky says that he feels partly responsible for Mr. Wilton, so he's gonna go deal with him himself. And then Tommy says that he's right behind him, and then that they're, well, he's not right behind him, but he's basically telling him good luck, and they manage to defeat Marvo the Meanie and turn him back into Mr. Wilton, and then basically Rito gets upset that he lost, and he manages to get back to the moon, and then Zedd basically tells him that not so easy being the bad guy, is it? And then basically what happens is he's wanting to have another chance, and then Zedd is saying that he doesn't deserve another chance, and then basically after that what basically happens is then it goes into the scene where the Rangers are in the youth center with Mr. Wilton and stuff, and then basically what happens is after that Bulk and Skull show up with the textbooks, and then when he Rocky says that he was wondering what happened to the textbooks, and then well, because basically Bulk says that they recovered the stolen textbooks, and then basically then Mr. Wilton gets a little upset, like he's like, those weren't stolen. I gave them to Rocky as a part of the Teacher for a Day program. And then when Bulk overhears that part, he's like, Teacher for a Day? Never heard of it. And then basically what happens is he gets upset, like he's like, you two just ruined the entire experiment. That gets me really mad. And then he basically punches this block of wood, because basically what happens is by this point a lot of them have been practicing karate and stuff, so that's when that's why the board was there, because, you know, because a karate shop kind of thing with practice can split an actual board in half. And then basically Bulk and Skull get scared by that and they run off, and then that's basically where this episode stops. So if you guys like this video when I post it, just please give this video the real best you guys can. And I will see you guys probably not tomorrow for the next video, but the day after tomorrow, because we're alternating which houses go which days today program and stuff. So anyway, just until probably until Friday, guys, just please give this video the real best you guys can, and I will see you guys, or Thursday for the next video, but just please give this video the real best you guys can, and I will see you guys next time for the next video. So, but until then, like I always tell you with this series, may the power protect you always.